Global idol Jungkook clashes live with a liberal TV host. Words fly, truths unravel, careers shatter. What really happened in that explosive moment? Did you just call me a puppet for standing up to propaganda? The studio fell into dead silence. Cameras kept rolling. Viewers across continents froze mid-sip, mid-text, mid-thought. Jungkook's voice wasn't raised, but something in its cold precision made the air itself retreat. It was supposed to be a safe interview. A puff piece. The artist behind the music, hosted by America's darling liberal commentator, Leon Crow. It aired live from Manhattan, streamed to over 42 countries, subtitled in 6 languages. Jungkook, global pop icon, fashion muse, and lately, humanitarian figure, sat across from her in an ash-gray suit with no tie, his tattooed fingers resting lightly on the leather armrest. He looked composed. Until now. Leon blinked, momentarily thrown off her practiced rhythm. No, Jungkook, I didn't mean it that way. I'm just saying, when celebrities get involved in politics. I didn't get involved, Jungkook interrupted, a note of steel entering his voice. I spoke the truth about what I saw, about what they tried to hide. And now you're calling me a puppet. Backstage, a panicked assistant waved at the control booth. Cut to commercial, she mouthed. But the director shook his head. This was gold. Too real. Too raw. The audience didn't know what to make of it yet. Neither did Leanne. She shuffled her cue cards, recovering with a stiff smile. Of course, you're entitled to your views. We're just trying to understand how someone of your influence came to believe in conspiracy theories that the rest of the world considers dangerous. Jungkook leaned forward, eyes sharp, a half-smile twitching at the corner of his mouth, more a warning than amusement. And yet none of you asked why those journalists disappeared. Or why my team was followed in Hungary. Or why we were hacked after releasing the footage. There it was. The bombshell. The buried lead. Cameras zoomed in. The words echoed through living rooms in Seoul, cafes in Berlin, backstreets in Manila. Social media lit up like a grid on fire. Leanne's smile faltered. He continued, slower now, every syllable dropping like iron nails. They showed me things. In Moldova. In Ukraine. Places no one wants to look at. And when I asked questions, I was told to stick to singing. I'm done pretending I didn't see what I saw. Somewhere in the audience, a breath hitched. A soft cough. But otherwise, stillness. Leon glanced toward the offstage manager for backup. None came. She was alone now, and so was he. But Jungkook wasn't trying to win. Not applause, not validation. His voice had taken on a different weight, no longer confrontational, but haunted. I used to think being famous meant freedom, he said, quieter now, eyes unfocused. But all it means is that when you start seeing the truth, they tighten the cage. There was a flash of vulnerability, just for a second. Then it was gone. Leon recovered, barely. Well, Jungkook, many viewers might think you're being dramatic. The word landed wrong. He smiled. Not the charming, billboard-ready grin. This was something colder. Sharper. No, he said. What's dramatic is silencing voices that don't fit your narrative. What's dramatic is labeling dissent as danger. What's dramatic is pretending neutrality while dining with the powerful behind closed doors. Leanne looked stunned. Behind her, the studio monitor flashed red. Trending #1 worldwide, hashtag Jungkook exposed the host. Then, hashtag Leanne Crow cancelled. When the feed cut to emergency ads, the damage had been done. Sponsors started pulling out within minutes. Leanne Crow was fired by sunrise. Outside, night had fallen hard over Manhattan. Cold rain slicked the pavement as Jungkook exited through the back entrance, ignoring the crowd of reporters and flashing lights. His manager tried to speak, but he waved her off. He walked fast, head down, like he was running from something no one could see. But he knew what was coming. He had started something that couldn't be undone. And the people watching, really watching, weren't just angry. They were afraid. You think this ends with one interview? Jungkook's voice was low, fierce, almost lost beneath the hum of Manhattan's after-midnight chaos. No, Minji replied, breathless as she caught up to him on the wet sidewalk. It's just beginning. And they're going to come at you hard. The rain poured in sheets now, drenching his coat and pulling shadows across his jawline. His breath fogged briefly in the summer night air as he turned to face her. There was something unreadable in his gaze, more than anger, deeper than fear. It was resolve, worn thin by years of restraint. The black SUV waited a block away. They ignored it. Minji, his head of security since the Eastern Europe tour, had seen this coming. The footage they'd recovered in Bucharest, the black-bagged agents tailing them in Zagreb, the sudden arrest of their Ukrainian translator, none of it was random. The tour had been an excuse. Jungkook had used it to get close to something darker, older, something everyone else pretended wasn't there. But now? It wasn't just whispers. It was live, global, and irreversible. Inside the SUV, a phone vibrated with urgent notifications. CNN, BBC, MBC, Le Monde, Fox. Everyone had a version of the truth. None of them had the whole story. He didn't speak until they reached the safe house, a brownstone in Brooklyn, abandoned and secured under a dummy LLC. The place smelled of old books and mothballs, but it was wired, firewalled, guarded. Trustworthy. For now. He tossed off his soaked coat, peeled off the wet undershirt, and sat at the massive wood table in the center of the den. His tattoos shimmered in the low light, symbols of faith, pain, memory. Marks not for fashion, but for remembrance. Minji paced near the window. Your label called 3 times. They want you to issue a retraction. Say you were emotionally overwhelmed. Blame exhaustion. No. They'll threaten to drop you. Let them. She turned. And the sponsors? Half your tour's already. I don't care about the tour anymore. She exhaled. Then tell me what you do care about. Because the way you went off tonight on live television, Jungkook, that wasn't just bold. It was suicide. Politically. Professionally. Even personally. He stared at her. His voice dropped. Do you remember Axel? Her expression froze. Axel Petrovich. The Serbian journalist. Mid-30s. Disappeared after giving them encrypted files. Files they hadn't been able to fully decode yet. His wife sent me a message. Last week. She said she found his body. 2 bullets to the head. Botched robbery, they claimed. In Belgrade. Minji sank into a chair across from him. He was the first one who told me about the camps, Jungkook whispered. About the trafficking network the media won't touch. The same one funded by certain humanitarian NGOs. Leanne's favorite donors. Minji's hands clenched into fists. We can't do this alone. We're not alone. From the shadows of the hallway, another voice spoke. Not anymore. They both turned sharply. A woman stepped into the light. Leather jacket, dark jeans, short platinum hair wet from the rain. Eyes cold with purpose. Kaya Leonova, she said. Investigative journalist. Exiled. I've been following your trail since Vienna. Minji was up in an instant, hand reaching for her concealed holster. No need, Kaya said calmly, raising both hands. I'm not here to hurt him. I'm here to help finish what he started. Jungkook stood slowly, wary but intrigued. You were the one who leaked the Belgrade intercepts. Kaya nodded. I was also the one who planted the decoy server they tried to burn. You're not the only one they want silenced. Minji lowered her hand, barely. Kaya approached the table and dropped a flash drive onto the wood. What you said on TV tonight woke up a lot of eyes. Some supportive. Most not. But this? This is the part they really didn't want out. Jungkook picked it up. What's on here? Proof. Recorded meetings. Names. Funding routes. Transfers. The real strings behind those camps in Transnistria. One of them has ties to Leanne's production company. Minji inhaled sharply. You're saying she's involved? No, Kaya said. I'm saying she's owned. Jungkook slumped back into the chair, the flash drive cold in his palm. It all connected. The questions Leanne avoided. The way her tone had shifted when he mentioned the camps. She wasn't just defending an ideology, she was protecting an investment. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Jungkook whispered, they're going to try to bury this. Or bury us. Kaya nodded grimly. Which is why we go bigger. No more quiet drops. No more whispers in back alleys. We go public. With everything. Do we even have that kind of reach? Minji asked. Kaya pulled out her phone, loaded a video file. The screen lit up with grainy footage, interior of a camp, long shadows of children, armed men, medical equipment that looked anything but legal. A man in a suit handing a briefcase to someone in military fatigues. Jungkook leaned in. Is that? Yes, Kaya said. A NATO contractor. Paid to observe border activity. And that? She tapped the screen. That's Leanne's brother. The room seemed to shrink. The weight of what they now held was suffocating. Jungkook closed his eyes, memories flooding in, the cracked voice of the little girl in Romania, the blood on the hotel carpet in Odessa, the intercepted radio chatter near the Ukrainian border. This is no longer about me, he said finally. This is war. Suddenly, the safe house lights flickered. Minji stood, gun out in an instant. We're being scanned. Kaya pulled a laptop from her backpack, plugged in a jammer. They found the signal. We have minutes. Jungkook grabbed the flash drive, handed it to Kaya. Get this to someone you trust. I already have. The front door shook. Minji moved to the entry, bracing, her voice calm and cold. We're not dying tonight. Kaya turned to Jungkook. There's one last thing you should know. What? Leanne's network has a kill switch. If this footage leaks, she'll go down and she'll take others with her, including the South Korean trade minister. Your own government might turn on you. Jungkook met her eyes. Let them. And then. Crack. The front door splintered open. Gunfire erupted. Smoke filled the room. Minji shouted, "Go." Jungkook and Kaya bolted through the back, heart hammering, lungs burning, sirens wailing in the distance. As they ran into the rain-soaked Brooklyn alleyway, Jungkook realized something terrifying and freeing all at once. He wasn't just a pop star anymore. He was the fuse. And the world was already burning. The alley reeked of rot and rain. Smoke still clung to Jungkook's clothes, mixed with the acrid trace of spent gunpowder. Sirens screamed in the distance, no longer a warning, they were hunting them now. Minji had vanished into the chaos the moment the tactical unit breached the safe house. She was trained for that. Evade. Distract. Buy time. Jungkook hated the part of him that accepted her sacrifice so easily. Kaya was 2 steps ahead, clutching the flash drive like it was a live heart. Her breaths came out fast and sharp. She had been through worse, that much was clear, but now it was different. Now the whole weight of truth, of survival, of damnation, rested on plastic the size of a cigarette lighter. They turned down a tight passage, jumping over trash bags and sloshing through puddles, their feet soaking through their shoes. How many? Jungkook asked between breaths. For that I saw, Kaya said. Maybe more on the rooftops. Do they know who I am? They don't care who you are. They care what you know. They burst out into a narrow cross street. A homeless man watched from behind a wet tarp, eyes wide. A dog barked once, then was silent. Kaya pulled Jungkook into a service entrance behind a shuttered laundromat. The inside stank of bleach and mold. She kicked over a crate, revealing a trapdoor. A friend owns this place, she said. Well, used to. They dropped into darkness. The hatch sealed above them, shutting out the storm and the world. For several seconds, there was nothing but the sound of their own breathing. Then Kaya flicked on a red-tinted flashlight. The space beneath was narrow, lined with decaying insulation and the smell of old paper. A cable ran down the length of the passage, barely visible. They crawled forward, belly to ground. This route goes to the sub-basement under Fulton Market, Kaya whispered. It was built during Prohibition. Smugglers, bootleggers. Now it's just ghosts and hackers. The crawl felt eternal. Jungkook's elbows scraped raw. Sweat stung his eyes. When they finally emerged, it was into a hidden tech den, grungy, cold, but humming with screens and discarded servers. 3 people waited inside. One was a tall man with a metal prosthetic arm and more scars than teeth. Another was a short, silent woman in hijab, typing rapidly on a keyboard, face blank with focus. The third, a teenager, maybe 17, dressed in a pixelated hoodie, eyes darting between screens like he was seeing 12 versions of reality. You brought the idol, the teen said, smirking. Ballsy move. We need to decrypt it now, Kaya said, slamming the flash drive onto the table. They breached the safe house. The broadcast team is dead. Minji's off-grid. The man with the metal arm stood, eyes locked on Jungkook. Do you know what you've done? Jungkook looked him dead in the eye. Yeah, I told the truth. Wrong, the man said. You exposed it. Truth is worthless without timing, context, strategy. He didn't have a choice, Kaya snapped. They were going to spin him no matter what. At least now the world knows. No, the teen said. Now the world thinks it knows. That's more dangerous. The woman at the keyboard spoke softly. We need a secure relay. Their AI is already sniffing the packet routes. She began decoding. Kaya turned to Jungkook. You still have one shot to get ahead of this. He raised an eyebrow. How? By becoming something they can't control. The man with the metal arm nodded. You've already stepped out of their box. Now we make you radioactive. Untouchable. Jungkook frowned. You want to turn me into a symbol? No, Kaya said. We're going to let them turn you into one. You just have to survive long enough for it to matter. The woman cracked the first firewall. Jungkook sat on a crate, head in his hands. For years he had mastered control, his image, his craft, his silence. But that image had cracked wide open on live television. Now he wasn't a musician. He was a trigger. What if we fail? He asked. We don't, Kaya said. The teen turned. Because if we do, they rewrite the story. You become the mad singer. The delusional star. Your dead friends? Footnotes. That girl in the camp? A hoax. The footage? Deep fake. It's already being done. The woman's voice cut through. I'm in. Everyone moved toward the screens. Jungkook stepped forward. The footage opened on a time-stamped video file. It was real. Shot in a tunnel. Voices echoed, Ukrainian, Russian, English. A man screamed. Children cried. A transaction occurred. The man in the NATO vest handed over a list. Kaya paused the screen. That's the list of names. Hundreds of them. Smuggled. Sold. Another video. A donor gala. Leon Crow, laughing beside a bald man with a UN lapel pin. Behind them, a blurred face, South Korean diplomat Cho Jin-suk. A final clip. In infrared. A shipping container opened in the dead of night. Inside, bodies. Alive. Drugged. One looked straight at the camera. It was the girl Jungkook had met in Odessa. Anna. His jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. Leak it, he said. Not yet, Kaya replied. We release it with you. Your voice. A direct message. No edits. No handlers. The man with the prosthetic arm raised an eyebrow. Can you handle the fallout? Jungkook nodded once. Let them come. The woman prepared the servers. The teen routed the packet chain through untraceable nodes across the dark net, Greenland to Kenya to Taiwan. Then Jungkook sat in front of the lens. No makeup. No lights. Just red eyes, damp hair, and a fury tempered by grief. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, he said. I'm here to bear witness. He spoke. Of the girl. Of the camps. Of the silence that screamed louder than any truth. Of the cost of fame. Of power. He spoke for Axel. For Anna. For the ones the world forgot. When the message ended, the woman uploaded it to 7 leak platforms simultaneously. Then to satellite rebroadcasters. Then to peer-to-peer servers in countries without extradition treaties. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Then the lights in the den cut out. The building trembled. They found us, Kaya whispered. The team scattered. Laptops into bags. Drives into walls. The woman started a data burn protocol. The man drew a gun from his hip. The teen vanished into a side tunnel. Kaya grabbed Jungkook's arm. We move. Now. They escaped into the old subway tunnels. Darkness swallowed them whole. Somewhere behind them, another explosion. Screams. Fire. Above ground, the world boiled. News channels scrambled. The footage was too visceral to ignore. Governments denied, then stuttered, then went silent. Activists marched. The UN convened an emergency session. The South Korean government distanced itself from Cho Jin-suk. Anonymous factions of the military began to question long-standing alliances. And Jungkook? He became the storm. Not a pop star. A reckoning. He had destroyed the silence. But silence, when shattered, always fights back. Rain thudded against the glass roof of the abandoned metro station, like the ticking of some countdown clock that only the hunted could hear. The emergency lights flickered in rhythmic pulses, off red, then darkness, then light again. Jungkook sat on the edge of a shattered ticket counter, the cold seeping through his damp jeans and into his bones, but his mind was elsewhere. Kaya was arguing in the corner with the man they only knew as Trezor, a former whistleblower turned digital ghost. Their voices bounced through the chamber like ricocheting bullets, and every word carved new tension into the air. "He shouldn't be here," Trezor growled, his Czech accent thick with frustration. "You're using him like bait." "He made the choice," Kaya shot back, low and fierce. "He's more than just an idol now." "He's a symbol, sure," Trezor spat. "But a dead symbol doesn't start revolutions. It ends them." Jungkook stood. "I'm not dead yet." They both turned. Kaya's lips parted, about to protest, but Jungkook stepped forward, eyes hollowed from 3 sleepless days, his voice unshaken. "Don't talk about me like I'm not in the room. You brought me into this world, now you'll trust me to survive in it." Kaya inhaled through her nose. "You haven't slept. You haven't eaten. There are kids being sold across borders like livestock. I'll sleep after we shut every gate they built." Trezor scowled. "Then prepare to be hunted for the rest of your life. They're not just after you anymore. Interpol is watching. South Korea issued a passive warrant for questioning. You're officially a threat to national diplomacy. You've crossed a line that doesn't get uncrossed." Jungkook's mouth curled bitterly. "Good. That means it worked." From across the room, Farah, the silent coder from Gaza, spoke for the first time in hours. "They've started blocking the footage," she said without turning from her laptop. "DNS blackouts in China, Russia, Hungary, and Saudi Arabia. Instagram and TikTok are pushing shadow bans. They're calling it child exploitation." Jungkook scoffed. "They're accusing me of exploiting children after what we showed them?" "Perception is a weapon," Kaya muttered. "They're not playing fair, and they never will." Just then, a notification pinged across the room. Farah's system blinked in red. Everyone froze. Kaya rushed over. "What is it?" Farah's fingers flew across the keyboard. "A breach. Deep packet scan. South Korean origin." Trezor's eyes narrowed. "That's not just Seoul. That's National Intelligence Service level. Someone back home's trying to pinpoint him." Jungkook stepped forward. "Let them. I'm not hiding anymore." But Kaya turned sharply. "Don't be stupid. You don't get to martyr yourself before the work is done. We are the work now," he snapped. The air snapped taut. For a long second, no one said anything. Then, slowly, Kaya walked over and handed him an envelope, worn, sealed, unmarked. "It's from Minji," she said quietly. "She left it at one of our old drop sites. No voice messages, no tech. She knew we'd be compromised." Jungkook opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid. Anna, the girl from Odessa, alive. Somewhere outdoors. Her eyes wide, tired, but alive. Scrawled across the back in marker, "Hold the signal." "She's the key." He stared at it, the paper trembling slightly in his hand. "She's alive," he whispered. "They didn't send her back to the pipeline." "No," Kaya said, stepping closer. "They're keeping her somewhere. That means she's important. Or dangerous." Jungkook looked at her. "We find her. We have to," she agreed. "And we will. But it gets harder from here. You're going to have to face the people who raised you to believe in safety, in silence, in controlled rebellion. Your old management. Your label. Your government. Even your own fans." "I'm ready." "No," Kaya said, her voice lowering. "You need to be more than ready. Because the next move is yours." Trezor stood by the broken ticket booth, watching the news cycle spiral out of control on his mobile rig. His voice was grim. "They've launched a counter-documentary. Netflix. Amazon. All timed together. Talking heads claiming you're mentally unstable. That you're being manipulated by radical fringe cells." Kaya looked back at Jungkook. "They're erasing you. Real time." Jungkook's jaw clenched. Then I take it back. How? With a face. He walked to the old mirror bolted onto the metro wall. His reflection stared back, fractured, dim. Gone was the coiffed pop star. In his place stood someone older, leaner, worn by exposure, fire, fear. I go live again. This time on my terms. Not as the idol. Not as the conspiracy. As the witness. Farah nodded. We can piggyback a private stream through a darknet node. Masked ID audio obfuscation unless you want it raw. Jungkook turned to her. No masks. But that means They already know who I am, he said. I want them to see what I've become. It took hours to prep. Kaya scouted exit routes. Trezor updated their dead switch in case they were caught midstream. Farah programmed the relay points. They had maybe 15 minutes of airtime before the servers were hit with takedown strikes. At 3:04 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Jungkook went live. No title. No music. No filters. Just a face, pale under flickering neon. Just a voice, rough from smoke and silence. He didn't read a script. He spoke. About Anna. About Axel. About the names on the lists. About the money trails. About the countries complicit. About the masks media wears when it calls itself righteous. He named the names. He called out the corporations laundering abuse through fake charities. He described the things he saw, the cargo containers with drilled air holes, the children with tattooed barcodes, the translators who vanished overnight. And he said one thing more. If they come for me tonight, remember this face. Not because I was famous. Because I refuse to lie. And because truth is louder than silence, if you dare to hear it. Then the stream went black. Servers crashed. Social media imploded. 500 million views in 6 hours. Mirrors. Reuploads. AI simulations trying to falsify or confirm his words. The world cracked open. And somewhere, across a black sea and behind reinforced concrete, a little girl opened her eyes to the sound of his voice through a smuggled phone and whispered to herself in Ukrainian. He didn't forget. Neither would the world. Not ever again. The silence after the live stream was the loudest sound Jungkook had ever heard. In the abandoned station beneath Brooklyn, no one moved. Kaya's fingers hovered over the keyboard as if she could still touch the echo of his last word. Farah sat motionless in front of her screen, data cascading past her eyes, yet she didn't blink. Trezor stared at the black monitor where the feed had once been, as if willing it to come back, as if uncertain whether what they had done was brilliant or suicidal. Jungkook, drenched in sweat, his heart still hammering from the adrenaline, simply stood. They'll come, he said softly. They already are, Kaya murmured, sliding a small satellite phone across the table toward him. Listen. He lifted the phone to his ear. It was set to a hidden line, one he used only for emergencies and only with one person. The voice on the other end was familiar. Tight. Professional. Controlled, as always. Jungkook, said CEO Yoon Jamin of HYB. You've started a war you don't understand. Jungkook didn't flinch. I understand it perfectly. You helped fund one side of it. There was a pause. The line buzzed faintly. You think the world will crown you a hero for this? Yoon's tone was calm, but cold. They'll tear you apart. They'll call you a traitor. A fraud. A lunatic. You just put a target on your family. On your country. Then why are you so afraid? Jungkook asked. Another pause. You don't know what you've exposed. Try me. You didn't just hit NGOs, Jungkook. You hit sovereign intelligence operations. You exposed trade routes used by nation-states. You triggered 4 silent treaties. You rattled the intelligence communities of 3 continents. Do you understand what that means? You're not a singer anymore. You're a liability to global order. Jungkook's knuckles tightened around the phone. So be it. Come home, Yoon said. Recant. We'll clean this up. You'll say you were misled. Emotionally manipulated. Victimized. I was, Jungkook said, by you. He ended the call. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kaya said, we have another problem. Farah was already typing, her lips moving in a prayer. They've activated the kill chain. Trezor swore. Define kill chain. They flagged his identity through Interpol's Tier 3 silent node. Every surveillance system on Earth just got told Jungkook is an international security threat. They can detain, extract, or eliminate, no paperwork. Blacklist level. That's not real, Jungkook muttered. That's for terrorists. For people on the run with bombs. Farah didn't look up. To them, you're a bomb. Trezor was already moving. We go now. We switch countries. Kaya, get your Russian passport. Farah, burn the relay point. We split routes. Underground to JFK board cargo. No, Jungkook stood tall. I'm not running. This isn't noble, Trezor snapped. This is suicide. I said I wouldn't lie. That includes hiding. If I vanish now, I become the villain they're painting me as. Kaya stepped forward. Then what's your plan? Because the wolves are at the door. He turned to her, his face strangely calm. I go to Geneva. Everyone froze. Farah stopped typing. Kaya blinked. Trezor actually laughed, humorless. The UN? Kaya said, incredulous. They're having a human rights summit, Jungkook said. And for the first time in 10 years, the Security Council will be there in person. Including the Secretary General. Including the Korean ambassador. You'll never make it through security. I have diplomatic leverage. With who? Jungkook pulled a small black badge from his pocket, barely larger than a coin. Kaya stepped back in shock. You had a UN Artist Peace Delegate card, she whispered. You kept it hidden? They issued it 2 years ago. After I toured Syria. I never used it. I was told it was just for PR. But it has a residual status. I checked. It gets me in the building. Trezor paced. It won't stop them from arresting you outside. Then I get inside first. Silence fell again. And then Kaya exhaled, deeply. You're serious. I have to be. Farah looked up. If he can get on that floor, even for 5 minutes, if he tells them what's on that drive, with the global press there, live translations, uneditable. They can't kill him there, Kaya finished. But they'll try the second he walks out, Trezor said darkly. Jungkook nodded. So I don't walk out. Not until the world decides what it believes. The journey to Geneva was nothing short of a covert military operation. They moved through safe houses in Montreal, across borders via ice roads in Norway, smuggled into a private freight airship under diplomatic cargo headed to Zurich. Kaya shaved her head. Farah wore a false pregnancy suit with forged Saudi credentials. Trezor traveled inside a refrigerated container, nearly freezing. Jungkook, always recognized, had to hide in plain sight. In one stop, he pretended to be a mute refugee. In another, a patient being transferred for emergency psychiatric care. He didn't sleep. He barely ate. But each border crossed was another heartbeat closer to truth. In Geneva, beneath gray skies, a storm of media swirled around the Palais des Nations. The summit was underway. Security was at military level. Facial scans. Biometric checks. Diplomatic rosters guarded by mercenaries in black. Kaya handed him the forged supplement papers. They'll still scan you. They'll know. I know. He stepped forward. And for a moment, just a sliver of eternity, nothing happened. Then the scanner beeped green. A miracle? Or a ghost in the machine? No one moved to stop him. He entered. The Human Rights Chamber, with its iconic domed ceiling of colored stalactites, was quieter than he'd expected. World leaders sat in rows, half listening to speeches they wouldn't remember. Delegates whispered translations into headsets. The Secretary General sipped lukewarm tea. And then, he stepped up to the microphone. The silence that followed was biblical. Some recognized him instantly. Others did not. But by the time he finished speaking, by the time he showed the footage, the names, the maps, the transactions, the silence broken by screams, by the time he held up Anna's photo and said her name in 6 languages. No one cared who he was. Only what he had said. The chamber exploded. Reporters fought to stream live. Countries stormed out. Others demanded immediate investigations. And somewhere far from the chamber, a girl named Anna smiled through the bars of her locked room, hearing his voice echo off a cracked radio, and said, "The world sees me now." And Jungkook, standing alone beneath the stained glass dome, knew this was not the end. This was the reckoning. He felt the weight of the room shift before the first voice even rose. Jungkook stood beneath the jagged ceiling of the United Nations Human Rights Council chamber, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the murmurs beginning to ripple across the rows of suits and translators. Delegates turned to one another in whispered tones, the cool professionalism of global diplomacy cracking as emotion bled into the oxygen. In front of him, 193 flags. Behind him, a truth so volatile it could melt the thin ice that kept the world's alliances afloat. And in that moment, as the screen behind him darkened after the final footage of Anna's containment camp dissolved into black, he knew two things. The world had heard him, and they were now deciding what to do about it. A man from the South Korean delegation rose, his voice flat with shock. "This is unacceptable. This individual does not have the right to speak in this chamber. This violates protocol." Jungkook didn't flinch. The Secretary General, a tall woman from Norway with silver hair tied tightly at the back of her head, held up a hand. Mr. Jeon entered the floor under residual diplomatic authority granted in 2023 under Article 14 of the Cultural Witness Mandate. That status, while unconventional, is valid. We will not silence testimony. Not today. Her voice was sharp but calm, a voice used to ending wars with syllables. Still, chaos bloomed. China's delegate raised his microphone. "This testimony is an act of political agitation, fabricated by extremist cells. We move to strike it from official record." A British representative stood next. "We have seen the raw files. The footage is time-stamped, unedited, verifiable. You want to erase it because you're complicit." "Order," the Secretary General said again. "We will maintain order." Jungkook watched it unfold like an avalanche in slow motion. The names he had read, names of NGOs, government contractors, middlemen and diplomats, all tied to the trafficking networks, were now triggering open denials, threats, red-faced fury. The footage had been irrefutable. A child on a shipping manifest. A charity fund misused. Anna's bruised face. But truth was not enough. Not here. Not when the stakes were this high. He leaned into the microphone again. The room hushed. "I didn't come here to break your rules. I came because I followed them, all of them, and they still led me to a cage." He paused, letting that hang in the air. "I went where you told me not to go. I saw what you didn't want me to see. And I brought it back. And I showed it to you, to the world, not because I want to destroy you." He looked at the Chinese and Korean delegations. "But because I want you to change." The Spanish translator at his side was struggling to keep up. One or two phrases were dropped. It didn't matter. The tension translated itself. "Mr. Jeon," came another voice, cold and clipped, American. Senator Randall, present as a special observer. "What you're proposing, if it's even half true, would dismantle entire diplomatic structures. Cause riots. Cost lives. Are you prepared to live with that?" Jungkook locked eyes with him. "I'm already living with it. The lives you're worried about are your own reputations. You're not protecting civilians. You're protecting secrets." More murmurs. Anger. Fear. But one woman from Ukraine stood slowly. "I met Anna. She was real." All eyes turned. She was 13 when she disappeared. Her village thought she was dead. But there were rumors, whispers of men in black vans, of documents that went missing. Of foreign contractors paid in cash. She pulled out a printed photo, the same one Jungkook had shown. "She's alive. And I believe this man saved her life." She placed the photo on her delegation's desk. A symbol. A crack in the dam. Jungkook swallowed back the lump in his throat. The room pulsed with shifting gravity. And then the chaos returned, not verbal, not political. Something darker. A man burst through the back door. Black suit. Gun raised. Screaming erupted. Delegates ducked. Security swarmed. Jungkook froze as the barrel aimed straight for his chest. And then Kaya tackled him from the left. The bullet missed. Security officers tackled the assailant before he could fire again. But the message had been delivered. He wasn't safe. Not even here. As the room fell into stunned silence, Kaya dragged him behind the delegation booths, blood trickling down her temple from the fall. They sent him through the French back door, she panted. Someone inside the building authorized him. That's not random. Jungkook helped her sit, eyes blazing. They're trying to erase me. In real time. Farah's voice crackled over a calm in Kaya's ear. They're already rewriting your narrative. You're trending on darknet forums as a fabricated AI performance. The footage is being debunked as deepfake by 5 major media outlets. China's pushing that the girl in the video is an actress. They're calling you mentally compromised. Kaya wiped blood from her brow. We don't run. Not now. I wasn't going to. Then, something unexpected happened. A representative from Brazil, young, sharp-eyed, unflinchingly serious, stepped up to the main floor mic. I move that this chamber vote for immediate investigation of the claims submitted by witness Jungkook under Article 17 of the Geneva Protocols. Another rose. And another. Argentina. France. Kenya. The vote passed 92 to 51. Dozens abstained. But it passed. And that meant one thing. The evidence would now enter official record. It would be protected. Reviewed. International investigators would have to pursue the leads. Governments would be forced to answer. The truth was no longer his alone. Backstage, Kaya bandaged her head as Jungkook stared blankly at a monitor. His hand trembled. Did we win? He asked softly. No, she said. We survived. That's how every revolution starts. He nodded. And yet he felt no triumph. No relief. Only exhaustion. Only the realization that there was no way back. Not from this. He was no longer a pop idol. No longer a symbol. He was a disruptor. A witness. A man with enemies in every capital and blood on his conscience. But Anna was alive. And the world could no longer pretend it hadn't seen. As he walked out of the Palais under heavy guard, a girl on a balcony above held up a handmade sign written in 3 languages. We believe you. And for the first time in weeks, Jungkook smiled. A small, fractured smile. But real. The ride from Geneva to the secure compound in Lyon was under blackout conditions. 3 black, unmarked SUVs. 6 armed agents. 2 helicopters circling above in alternating rotation. Jungkook sat in the back seat of the middle car, flanked by Kaya on his left and a newly assigned UN security officer on his right, who hadn't said a single word since they left the perimeter. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was surgical. They all knew what had just happened back in Geneva would echo across the world in days to come, if not hours. The vote had passed. The footage had been logged. The investigation would begin. But that didn't mean he was safe. It meant the opposite. They'll come at you harder now, Kaya said without looking at him. Her temple was still bandaged, and her voice was quieter than usual. They'll stop pretending. No more reputation games. They'll try to disappear you. Legally. Or not. I thought I was already public enough for that to be impossible, Jungkook said. Impossible? Kaya scoffed lightly. Edward Snowden is still in exile. Julian Assange is a political grenade. You're an artist who just turned $1 billion humanitarian industry inside out. They're going to label you unstable, extremist, manipulated. Or worse, manufacture a crime. I don't care what they call me. You will, she said. When they come for your family. He turned sharply to her, but she didn't flinch. You think they won't use your parents, your brother, the fans, the label? You think they'll just attack you? Kaya finally met his gaze. They'll use your face to destroy everyone who's ever stood beside you. I've seen it. It's what they do. They rot the ground you stand on. Make it so you have nowhere to return to. The driver muttered something in French. Kaya translated under her breath. They've identified 3 drones tailing us. Jungkook felt his pulse tick upward. I'm surprised they didn't take the shot already. They're watching, the UN officer said. First word spoken. His voice was British, but clipped, trained. Waiting to see where you land. Who protects you? When they figure out who is you, then they'll act. And what do you think they'll do? Jungkook asked. Depends who wins the narrative first. The world was already reacting. By the time they reached Lyon, the media was divided into 3 camps. One, led by Chinese state media and several conservative American networks, claimed Jungkook was the face of a sophisticated psychological operation designed to destabilize global aid programs. Another camp, spearheaded by whistleblower communities, rogue journalists, and independent citizen networks, hailed him as a modern martyr. The third group, perhaps the most dangerous, remained silent. Major Western outlets. Established liberal voices. HYB's official PR arm. They were recalibrating, deciding if Jungkook was still salvageable, or if he was too far gone. In the compound, nestled deep in the forested outskirts of Lyon, Jungkook was ushered into a low-lit war room filled with maps, timelines, dossiers, and surveillance feeds from 10 countries. Kaya moved with the authority of someone who had prepared for this eventuality years in advance. Trezor was already there, his arm in a sling, his face gaunt, but alive. "I told you they'd try to kill you," he said instead of a greeting. "I'm still here. For now. Did we lose anything?" "Farah's gone," he said. "Taken." Jungkook's stomach dropped. They got her in Zurich. Border checkpoint flagged her ID. She was on her way to exfil. She had the second backup drive. Jungkook lowered his head. "Dead? We don't know. No body. But her signal's been dead for 12 hours. Which means, yes." Silence fell. Kaya pulled her coat tighter. "I told her to stay underground," she muttered. "You didn't make her choices for her," Jungkook said. "She knew what she was doing. She was 17. And braver than all of us." The air felt heavier now. They moved to the tactical table. Dozens of red pins marked confirmed trafficking routes. Yellow pins showed collapsed camps. Blue were safe zones. The pins were clustered across Eastern Europe, the Middle East, pockets of Africa. South Korea had only one pin, gray. Neutral. Watching. Kaya traced a line from Moldova to the Black Sea. "We found where Anna is being kept." Jungkook stepped closer. A barge. Not docked. Floating. International waters, off Romania's coast. It's a mobile prison. They keep the high-value children there. Ones with names. "Anna's in cabin 6. He looked up. "How sure are you?" Trezor decoded the satellite ping. "It's old Cold War tech. That's how they've stayed invisible." "You're telling me she's trapped on the ocean, in a floating cage, and no one's doing anything about it?" "Not until the investigation forces someone to act. And that'll take weeks. Months, maybe." Jungkook shook his head. "She doesn't have that long." "Then we take the boat," Trezor said flatly. Kaya turned to him stunned. "You're insane. I've done worse. I know a smuggler in Constanza. He owes me. We get a fast craft. We go at night. Hit it hard. Take the girl. Sink the barge." Jungkook's heart pounded. "We'll need proof. If we just destroy it." "We record everything," Kaya cut in. "Helmet cams. Drone feed. Stream it in real time, like you did before. This time, we make it a rescue mission. The world watches us save her." They stared at each other. No one spoke. Not even to disagree. It was suicide. But it was also undeniable. An hour later, they were in the air again. Romania. Jungkook watched the lights of Europe glitter below him as the jet soared eastward. He held Anna's photo in his hand. On the back was still the marker ink Minji had scrawled, "She's the key." He didn't know what it meant yet. But he knew one thing. If she was still breathing, if she still remembered his name, if she still whispered songs he had sung to her through static radio, then the fight wasn't over. The world might call him a traitor, but Anna would call him hope. And that was all he needed. The barge waited. And for the first time in his life, Jungkook wasn't afraid of the ocean. He was ready to burn it down. The wind howled like an animal above the Black Sea, slamming into the small vessel that sliced through the waves in darkness. Every inch of the deck groaned as if the ocean were protesting their intrusion. Cold spray lashed Jungkook's face, but he didn't flinch. He stood near the prow, eyes fixed ahead, on the shadow that was beginning to take shape in the distance. The barge. It rose like a black island against the horizon, motionless in the middle of international waters. From afar, it looked abandoned. A ghost ship. No lights. No visible crew. Just an ugly, rusting hulk floating in limbo. But Jungkook knew better. He could feel the evil pulsing from its steel skin, as if the crimes committed inside had soaked into the metal. Kaya appeared beside him, soaked and pale, clutching a modified drone controller. She tapped his shoulder to be heard above the engine. This is the only approach window we get. Radar dead zone lasts 18 minutes. After that, we're exposed. 18 minutes, he nodded. It's enough. Behind them, Trezor adjusted his shoulder harness and chambered a round into his rifle. He had that look again, the one that said, "This is my last ride, and I know it." Next to him were two mercenaries, ex-French Foreign Legion, paid off with Bitcoin and blood debts. Jungkook's stomach twisted. He had never held a gun, never stormed anything. His life had been built on stages and cameras, on velvet ropes and fan chants. But here, now, all of that was ash. He wasn't a performer. He was a breach in the system. The radio cracked. Farah's voice, recorded, digitized, transferred through underground channels, played through Kaya's earpiece. Cabin 6 is on deck 3. Left corridor. For doors down. Cameras are infrared only. No live audio. Guards change every 2 hours. Cabin is locked with biometric access. One print. One retina. They had reconstructed the information using intercepted transmissions. Farah had disappeared, but her final act had been a blueprint of salvation. She's in there, Kaya said. Anna. Or what's left of her. Jungkook nodded once. Trezor raised his hand. Masks on. No noise. If we fire, it's already failed. They pulled balaclavas over their faces and slipped into the night. The small boat docked silently against the barge's rear-loading bay. A rusted ladder led up the side. One by one, they climbed. Jungkook's hands trembled as he gripped the wet rungs. Every inch upward made him feel less human and more myth. By the time he reached the top, Trezor had already neutralized the first guard silence pistol, one shot to the back of the neck. Kaya slipped past him and jammed a relay node into a wall port. We're streaming live to 5 underground networks, she said. Time to open their eyes. The barge was labyrinthine. Rotting corridors. Steel doors with rusted hinges. The smell was unbearable, damp, urine, antiseptic. Faint cries echoed from deep within. They moved quickly, bypassing storage rooms filled with crates marked with false NGO logos. One room was filled with 4 bags and used syringes. Another had rows of numbered jumpsuits folded neatly, as if ready for auction. It wasn't a prison. It was a factory. Kaya checked the wall map. Deck 3. That stairwell. They descended in silence. No alarms. No footsteps. Only the oppressive hum of electricity and the faint, almost inhuman murmur of those too broken to scream. When they reached the corridor, Jungkook froze. Door 1, silent. Door 2, locked, sealed with 2 codes. Door 3, a child's drawing scratched into the paint. Door 4, cabin 6. Jungkook raised his hand. Trezor leaned in, placing the stolen retina scanner up to the panel. The system blinked red. Shit, Trezor muttered. Wrong retina. Must be the backup operator. We don't have time, Kaya hissed. Someone's going to notice. Jungkook stepped forward. Move. He drew in a breath, clenched his fist, and slammed the heel of his boot into the lock. Once. Twice. It cracked but didn't give. Then the alarm shrieked. Trezor cursed. We're out of time. And then the door swung open. Inside was a small, dim room. 1 bed. 1 desk. 1 girl. She turned toward them, blinking against the light, and Jungkook's sneeze almost gave out. Anna. Thinner than before. Paler. But her eyes were the same. Kook, she whispered. His chest collapsed inward. She remembered. He moved to her side, cradling her. We're getting you out. But Anna shook her head. They won't let me. They said if I try to leave, they'll hurt the others. What others? She pointed at the air vent. Kaya pried it open. Dozens of eyes stared back. Children. Silent. Terrified. Cramped into the space behind the walls. Oh my God, Kaya breathed. Trezor looked back down the hallway. We're not leaving with one. We're leaving with all. It was impossible. They had no room. No plan for this many. But Jungkook stood. We take them all. We don't have the space. Kaya snapped. Then we fight for it. The next hour was chaos. Alarms blaring. Doors opening. Guards engaging. Trezor went down with a bullet to the shoulder. One mercenary was killed instantly. Kaya was slashed across the arm but kept firing. Jungkook carried 2 children at a time to the upper deck, ignoring the pain, the exhaustion, the blood. The stream was still running. The world was watching. By the time the Coast Guard vessels appeared on the horizon, drawn by the emergency pings they themselves had triggered, Jungkook was standing on the deck, surrounded by 32 rescued children, blood-soaked and shaking, but defiant. He looked straight into the drone camera above. You hid them. We brought them home. The footage spread in seconds. UN emergency units mobilized within the hour. Interpol began raids on ports across Europe. Kaya was taken into custody, then quietly released. Trezor disappeared again. Jungkook was flown to a secure medical facility under UN protection. He slept for 2 days. When he woke up, Anna was in the next room, coloring with crayons a nurse had brought her. She looked up at him through the glass. Smiled. And Jungkook, battered, hunted, vilified by some and sanctified by others, knew the truth. They would call it treason. But history would call it rescue. The courtroom in The Hague was unlike anything Jungkook had ever seen, not because of its design, but because of its silence. It wasn't the sterile quiet of an antiseptic hospital. It was a loaded silence, the kind that buzzed just under the skin, where the weight of too many truths, too long buried, pulled at the corners of every breath. The ceiling arched above them like the inside of a cathedral, but there were no saints here. Only observers, survivors, skeptics, and those whose reputations were now at risk of disintegration. 3 judges sat at the high bench, their robes ink black and expressions unreadable. The gallery was full, diplomats, journalists, former allies, even former bandmates. HYB had dispatched an entire legal team to sit in the rear left corner. The South Korean ambassador sat stone-faced behind them. No one made eye contact with Jungkook. He stood alone in the center of the floor. Not as a defendant. Not officially. Not yet. But the air around him was thick with the suggestion of punishment. The tribunal wasn't criminal yet, but it was global. And if the allegations Jungkook had helped reveal were confirmed, it would trigger the largest collapse of humanitarian funding networks in modern history, implicate officials across 15 nations, and destabilize diplomatic alliances forged over decades. He wasn't on trial. The system was. And the system had claws. The lead judge, a tall woman with gray eyes that seemed to skin bone as much as flesh, looked down at him. Mr. Jeon, you have invoked a rarely used statute within the Geneva Witness Protection Framework. You're claiming the role of unofficial human rights intermediary, yes? Yes. Despite having no formal training in law, diplomacy, or conflict operations? Yes. And yet, you now bring forward not only first-hand testimony of international human trafficking, but accusations against established non-governmental organizations, state actors, and intelligence agencies? I bring forward evidence, Jungkook said calmly. And the faces of the children who paid for everyone else's silence. The room shifted. A murmur. A restrained cough from the U.S. envoy. Someone's pen snapped. The judge raised a brow. We have received your footage. We have verified the digital forensics. But that is not the same as admissibility. You understand the implications of leveling these accusations without full procedural review. I understand I watched a child sold in front of me, Jungkook said. And that no procedure in the world made it stop. The judge paused, then nodded to the prosecutor's bench. State your opposition. A man with slicked-back hair and a surgical voice stood. We contend that the footage provided by Mr. Jeon was obtained illegally, under duress, and with the assistance of known cybercriminals and foreign agents. Furthermore, we challenge the chain of custody of said footage and suggest the possibility of digital manipulation. Additionally, Mr. Jeon's involvement with extremist leaks and his admitted association with black market informants render him a compromised witness. Jungkook stepped forward before the judge could interject. Do you want to verify the footage? He said. I'll take you there. Right now. You want to see the barge? The crates? The corridors? I'll show you the bloodstains I left dragging children out of steel boxes. The prosecutor lifted a hand, annoyed. This isn't theater, Mr. John. Then stop acting like the dead don't matter because they weren't filmed with a press pass. The judge tapped her gavel once. Order. The room obeyed. Jungkook exhaled. His hands trembled slightly. But he stayed focused. Kaya had warned him they would try to break him first, emotionally, then legally. It was working. But he wasn't here to win points. He was here to make truth impossible to ignore. Across the aisle, someone stood. It was Anna. The courtroom fell into a hush so complete even the judge forgot to speak. Anna stepped up to the podium reserved for protected witnesses. She had been given asylum status. Her presence here was voluntary. It broke every rule of political convenience. She looked so small, still frail. But her eyes burned with something larger than any nation. I am Anna Kovalenko, she said. I was taken from Odessa at age 13. I was moved between 5 locations. Sold twice. I remember every man who touched me. Every guard who ignored me. Every wall I carved a name into. And I remember the man who walked into that floating prison, bleeding, terrified, and said my name. She looked straight at Jungkook. He didn't rescue me. He remembered me. And when you're nothing, being remembered is more powerful than being free. Gasps. The press corps shifted forward. Anna continued, her voice iron. He didn't fake anything. If he hadn't acted, I'd be dead. Or worse. The judges conferred quietly. The lead judge nodded. Let the record show that Miss Kovalenko's testimony has been given under oath, with translation support and without coercion. Jungkook felt his knees go weak. He didn't cry. But he didn't need to. A slow momentum began to build. More witnesses came forward. One by one. A whistleblower from the NGO supply chain in Jordan. A smuggler turned informant from Moldova. A doctor who once worked for the UNHCR, now exposing falsified intake forms and altered DNA tests of trafficked minors. Each new voice added weight, until the scale could no longer be tipped by silence. But it came at a cost. Kaya was arrested the following day in Berlin. Interpol charged her under an obscure anti-encryption clause tied to sovereign espionage. Trezor disappeared again. Some said dead, others said he escaped to Iceland with a forged passport and a drive full of secrets. HYB formally denounced Jungkook, calling his actions well-intentioned but ultimately misguided. They released a statement implying that he had suffered a serious psychological episode and would be taking indefinite leave. Sponsors vanished. Endorsements were scrubbed. Former colleagues posted vague, PR-approved statements about complicated situations. The public fractured. Half the world called him a savior. The other half called him a traitor. But the tribunal moved forward. And after 5 weeks, 27 testimonies, 4 leaked memos, and the release of over 300 gigabytes of raw footage, the UN Human Rights Council voted. They declared the barge operation a verified crime against humanity. They ordered a global audit of every NGO operating under diplomatic immunity. They sanctioned 10 individuals. And though no government admitted guilt directly, several ministers resigned in the dark of night. The world had shifted. Jungkook returned to Geneva one last time. Not as a witness. Not as a fugitive. But as a man changed forever by truth. In the cafe across from the Palais des Nations, Anna sat across from him, now wearing a hoodie with patches from 4 countries, Ukraine, France, South Korea, and the UN emblem. Do you regret it? She asked. No, Jungkook said. I regret not doing it sooner. She sipped her tea. You know they'll never let you go back to music. He nodded. Maybe that life was never mine to keep. What now? He looked past her, toward the sea of reporters gathering beyond the gate. Now, he thought, I speak louder. Because the world was finally listening. The screen flickered to life in over 47 countries at once. There was no pre-roll. No logo. No theme music. Just a single camera frame. A room without windows. A desk, plain and wooden. A chair. A man sitting still beneath white, clinical light, his face gaunt but unwavering. Jungkook. He looked older. Not in years, but in the way iron does after too many winters, stronger at the surface, cracked somewhere underneath. When he spoke, it wasn't performance. It was confession. If you're watching this, it means the story didn't end when they wanted it to. He paused. No drama, no hesitation. Just truth making space for itself. I spent my entire life learning how to control what people saw. I trained to hit notes that made hearts swell. I studied expressions, tones, angles, how to stand in light, how to disappear in darkness. Fame taught me how to be perfect, but it never taught me how to be honest. The world held its breath, until a little girl looked me in the eye and whispered the name of her dead sister. That was the first time I ever sang for someone who didn't care who I was. She just wanted to live. Behind the camera, in a fortified studio buried under the Swiss Alps, Kaya watched with bloodshot eyes. Her left arm was in a sling, and her jaw was still bruised from the interrogation. But she didn't blink. The broadcast was untraceable. 5 layered satellites. Masked nodes. AI scrambling. They had one shot to finish the message before the signal was killed. It would bounce across peer-to-peer devices, dark web mirrors, encrypted torrents, and end-to-end underground forums. It couldn't be censored. Jungkook continued. They called me a liar. A traitor. A manipulated pawn of foreign actors. A mentally unstable artist lashing out at a world he couldn't control. He leaned forward, eyes burning now. But I wasn't lashing out. I was waking up. Across the world, screens lit up in coffee shops, libraries, street stalls, embassies, and bunkers. Children in Ukraine watched beside volunteers. Tech rebels in Nairobi shared it through Bluetooth in refugee camps. A woman in Seoul wept with the photo of Jungkook in her hand, his face so changed, so alive. I was told to be silent, Jungkook said. To sit down and wait for the right time. But that time never comes. Because the world never gives justice, only permits it in small, comfortable pieces. I'm done asking for permission. He lifted a thin drive from the table. This is everything they tried to bury. All of it. Names. Transfers. Medical logs. Every witness statement. Every intercepted call. Every erased file. All unlocked. All public. Forever. Kaya pressed a single keystroke. The upload began. The drive's contents were already distributed. But this was the trigger. The signal that would make the information impossible to ignore. Governments wouldn't be able to deny it now. Journalists would be forced to address it. Entire institutions would crumble if the people chose to see. Jungkook looked up again. They thought I wouldn't survive this. They took my career. My friends. My past. But what they couldn't take was you. The ones who kept watching. Who didn't turn away. His voice cracked then. Just a fraction. Just enough. I was never supposed to be a savior. I was supposed to be obedient. A face, a soundbite. But now I'm a warning. The lights in the studio flickered once. Kaya's voice buzzed in his earpiece. They found one of the routing paths. We have maybe 6 minutes. Jungkook didn't react. He kept speaking. There are more barges. More NAS. More ghosts waiting to be found. I'm asking you find them. I'm not special. I just stopped pretending I couldn't see. So now, I'm asking you to see too. He stood slowly. The camera tracked with him as he moved to the far wall. There, pinned like exhibits, were the Polaroids. Dozens. Each one labeled. Each one marked by hand. A name. A place. A life. He touched the photo of Anna. Then of Axel, the Serbian journalist. Then Minji, who had vanished on the escape route and hadn't been heard from since. I don't know what comes next, Jungkook said. Maybe they'll find me. Maybe they'll silence me for good. But I'd rather die remembered for telling the truth than live forever as a lie. The screen flickered. Kaya's voice, sharp now. We're out of time. Say the line. Jungkook looked straight into the lens. Tell them I never stopped singing. Then, blackout. The signal died. The satellite was overwritten. But it was done. The world had it. Within 15 minutes, the full leak detonated across networks. The footage of the ghost barge was downloaded over 500 million times in 2 hours. The faces of the traffickers were identified by citizen groups before Interpol confirmed them. A senator in the United States resigned live on air. 3 former executives of the NGO Interhumanity were arrested boarding a private jet in Geneva. In Seoul, a divided population erupted into protest. Some demanded Jungkook be arrested. Others lit candles outside the HYB building and sang his lyrics into the night sky. In Russia, a hacker known only as Elika surfaced to claim that her server had protected the stream. In Paris, 2 journalists received death threats after confirming the UN's silent involvement in camp resettlements. And in a hidden room, somewhere in northern Canada, Trezor watched the world crack open and said quietly to no one, "The boy made it." But the man who started it all was gone. Jungkook vanished in the blackout. His location unknown. No confirmed sightings. No last trace. Some believed he was taken. Others believed he chose to disappear. But those who knew him, Kaya, Anna, Trezor, believed something else. That he had walked into the fire of global consequence, and when the flames receded, he had become something more than the system ever allowed. Free. No final concert. No red carpet farewell. Just a signal, once lost, now carried by millions. And a promise, whispered from screen to screen, city to city, camp to camp. Tell them I never stopped singing. The world would remember. Not because they were told to, but because finally, they were listening.